Worst weather conditions this decade are sweeping across the country, bringing chaos to the country's transport network. In the southeast, several major roads are impassable with many drivers trapped in their vehicles. Rail services out of the capital are severely disrupted. In the Midlands, the Army have been called in to keep traffic moving on motorways. In Scotland, all roads to Glasgow are now described as treacherous.
Since the 1950s, crushed rock salt has been our main weapon against ice and snow on roads in winter. Its advantages are tremendous, and its problems limited. A local authority has to have the right supplier, someone who understands its needs. A supplier reliable in meeting their delivery requirements for summer restocking and efficient in maintaining deliveries through the depths of winter. A supplier strong enough to ride out the mild winters and still maintain a price structure meeting the demands of local authority fiscal budgets. A supplier with years of experience in rock salt mining. In all these areas, one name stands out. That supplier is ICI. "200 million years ago, the Cheshire Plain was a large inland sea. The climatic conditions were more reminiscent of the Sahara than the temperate climate we know today. Water from the ocean would spill over into this inland sea, and as the sun blazed down, so the water evaporated and the concentration of salt increased. Eventually, the concentration got so strong that the salt crystallized out at the bottom of the sea. Mixed in with the salt was sand and grit, blown into the water by strong winds from the deserts to the east. Over millions of years, layer after layer was laid down, until finally the depth of the seam became some 600 feet. Some of the layers are more gritty, and others less so, depending on how much sand was blown in. This is what is known today as rock salt. In the middle of the last century, the mine at Winsford was first started. The rock salt was used in animal feeds and as salt lick. Production ceased between 1892 and 1928, as a mine at Northwich was easier to work. And even after the mine reopened, production was only on a small scale. This was until the mid-1950s, when ICI invented the anti-caking agent for salt. This meant salt didn't solidify when stored outside, and thus could be easily handled and distributed. This enabled rock salt to be used as a cost-effective and successful method for keeping the highways free of ice in winter. This was particularly needed for the new and expanding motorway network, and so the floodgates on rock salt production were opened. Today, some 2 million tons are mined at Winsford every year, sufficient to meet the entire UK demand. In total, it's been estimated that there are reserves of about 400,000 million tons. The Cheshire-Shropshire field is much the largest in the UK. It stretches from the River Mersey in the north to Stoke in the south, with a total area of over 600 square miles. The salt that is extracted from the mine is the best quality for de-icing roads. This is due to the special combination of salt and clays, which gives good outdoor storage performance, a long life free of caking, and which prevents clogging up of the spreader during use. ICI has made a long-term commitment to the mine, continuing to operate the mine even when demand is low. There's an ongoing investment policy which is ensuring the mine's future well into the next century. Typically, £5 million is spent every year on capital purchases alone. This investment policy is resulting in lower prices to the customer and even greater mine safety. And the mine is a major employer in the area, with some 185 people working there or employed in closely connected activities. The mine works on a 3-shift system to make the most efficient use of the investment in equipment underground. There are about 30 people on each shift. The main face is about 600 feet below the surface, as it's this bed which produces the salt most suitable for road de-icing. To support the land above, the room and pillar technique of mining is used. Each shift, the next section to be extracted is first overcut and then undercut using special machines. 80 holes for explosives are then drilled into the face of the section using a computer-controlled robot. This ensures that when the face is blasted, a smooth roof and floor are obtained, and that the surface of the next face will be flat. After blasting, the 1,400 tons of rock salt are moved onto a conveyor belt using an enormous load haul dump machine. The conveyor carries the salt to an underground crushing plant, and from there it's hoisted to the surface. Upon reaching the surface, anti-caking agents are added, and the salt is then stockpiled ready for distribution round the country. Efficiency of distribution is of course critical to minimizing the cost to the customer, particularly with a product like salt where a large percentage of the total cost is transportation. To provide the most economic means of delivery, ICI at Winsford is one of the country's largest users of coordinated tipper haulage. This means that much of the salt which ICI moves is a return load or backhaul for vehicles bringing other products into the northwest. For example, a lorry could be transporting a load into the northwest, and rather than return empty, the lorry will then go via Winsford and carry rock salt back to a location near its home base. Throughout the year, dependent on the seasons, anything from sand lorries to grain lorries are coordinated in this way. This also means that supplying salt economically to some parts of the country is dependent on seasonal transport movements. For example, most of the rock salt supplied to East Anglia is carried by lorries which have previously transported sugar beet to the northwest. Sugar beet is harvested in late autumn, and so this is when the most favourable transport rates can be obtained. Similarly, grain comes from Bedfordshire in July and August, and China clay comes from Devon according to the demand for China. A clear understanding of these movements enables ICI to negotiate very keen rates for haulage. In all, there are about 100,000 rock salt lorry movements coordinated by ICI every year. These serve over 1,000 delivery locations. To ensure the continued smooth running of such a complex operation demands close liaison with local authorities, a thorough understanding of their needs, and an efficient loading and dispatch system. A computerized loading system is employed, and after each truck weighs in, a coded card is given to the driver. The vehicle is then loaded from the stockpile, weighs out, and a printed shipping and delivery note is given to the driver. The system is fully automated, ensuring there are no errors and providing both an accurate check of deliveries and an efficient invoicing system. The system also maximizes vehicle throughput, whilst ensuring that there's no chance of an overloaded lorry reaching the public highway. Not all the salt is transported by road. For some authorities, rail transport is more suitable, and for others, the salt is taken to local docks and forwarded by sea. During summer, as much as 500,000 tons may be stockpiled at Winsford, enough to cope with the severest of winters. And this will naturally grow in mild winters. But when the winter is severe, plans are ready to cope with the increased demand. Extra phone lines and staff are brought in immediately, and the emergency operations swings into action. The mine can handle and dispatch one 38-ton lorry every 45 seconds. There are, however, times in the depths of winter when lorries just can't get through. This is when flexibility of approach to delivery is crucial in a supplier. ICI are meeting this in two ways. Firstly, through using rail, sea and road in the most effective combination. And secondly, through the establishment of salt stockpiles at strategic locations throughout the country. A number of these have been located at docks to facilitate the immediate dispatch by sea of urgently needed supplies to anywhere around the country. This initiative is part of ICI's long-term commitment to meeting the needs of the customer. ICI appreciate that the mine is of strategic importance to the country and take a responsible attitude towards its operation. ICI also take a responsible attitude towards pricing, not capitalizing on winter shortages. In fact, with the economies of long-term investment, in real terms, the cost of salt to the end user has fallen in recent years. The maintenance of an efficient highway system in the UK, even in the worst of weather, is vital to Britain's economy. The prime supplier of salt must take a global attitude to their responsibilities. They must be reliable, price-conscious, professional, and efficient. They must be ICI.